Okay, when solving equations, you're always going to take the opposite operation. So the big thing here is to think about the operation that you're going to add or subtract, multiply, or divide from. For today, we're going to start off with adding and subtracting because they're best friends. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is addition. Another biggie to remember is that we need to get rid of that double sign first. So if there is a double sign, change it to 1. And the other biggie here is to always do the check step. You should get a 100 on this because you can check out every single answer using your calculator. All right, here's number 1. So the first thing is, it's up to you, but a lot of times people like to do it. You go to the equal sign and you draw your little river. You can draw a wall, whatever you want to call it. And essentially, we're balancing an equation. So if we do something on one side, we got to do it on the other. So I find the variable, which is my m, and we're trying to isolate the m. So we're trying to get the letter, the variable, by itself. So it wants everything else to get away from it. So you cover up the m, you're left with a plus 4. So the opposite of adding 4 is subtracting 4. So I have to subtract 4 on both sides. Those cancel out. I drop down my m, and then 9 minus 4 is 5. That is my solution. My solution is not 5. My solution is m equals 5. Now, every single time I should see the step or the check step. So you rewrite your original. And all we're doing is we're saying that m equals 5. So right here, we're just subbing in a 5. So 5 plus 4 is 9. Is that what we were supposed to get? Yep. Give me the points. I got it right. Number 2, draw your river. Find your equal sign, draw your river. I isolate the variable, so I find the variable first, which in this case is x. This time I'm subtracting 3, so to get x by itself, I need to get rid of the subtraction of 3, so I add 3 on both sides. Drop down your x. Negative 5 plus 2, or plus 3 is a negative 2. Please use your calculator, guys, to check yourself. Don't just try to wing it. All right, to check ourselves, we write the original equation, and we know this is an equation because it has an equal sign. And we're saying that x supposedly equals 2, or negative 2. So we're going to sub in the negative 2 right there. In my calculator, 2 negative minus 3 gives me negative 5. Sure enough, that's what I was supposed to get. Sounds great. Give me the points. All right, this time our equal sign is a little bit more to the left because now our variable is on the right. So once again, I find my variable, which is now a c. So I want c by itself, so I have to get rid of that plus 8. So the opposite of adding 8 is subtracting 8. Drop down your c, and then in my calculator, negative 10 minus 8 is a negative 18. Now, remember, guys, if you get weirded out with looking at it like that, that's fine. Just c equals negative 18. Those are the same thing, okay? Check step it out. Find your variable, and supposedly it's supposed to be negative 18. So, plus 8. In my calculator, negative 18 plus 8 is negative 10. Is that what I was supposed to get? Sure is. Give me the points. We got a couple more. Find your equal sign, draw your river. Find your variable. It's an m. I obviously like m's today. So then, now this one's a little sneaky because this isn't plus 12. This is 12 plus m. So you're looking at the 12, and what's the opposite of a positive 12? The opposite of a positive 12 is a negative 12. So we're going to subtract 12 on both sides. Those cancel. You drop down a positive m, which is just m. In my calculator, a negative 1 minus 12 is a negative 13. Do we have to check step it? Yes. Don't ask me that question every single time you have to check step it. So here's my m. Supposedly we think it's negative 13. So 12 plus a negative 13, and my calculator gives me negative 1. Yay. Number 5, so this is what we were talking about. So we find our variable, which is a p, but we have this grossness going on. So we shouldn't have two signs next to each other. So the first thing you actually need to do before you start moving stuff and everything else is get rid of it. So a positive and a negative is a negative. Okay, if you don't believe me, look at the Fox or whatever your teacher called it. A positive and a negative is a negative. So now I'm just going to drop the p, the 3 equals negative 8. Now, let's just go ahead and solve it. So I find p, draw your river. I cover up p, I'm left with a minus 3, the opposite of subtracting 3 is adding 3. Drop down your p, and my calculator, a negative 8 plus 3 is a negative 5. When you check step this one, you could go to what you rewrote, but just in case, go back to the original, because that way we can make sure that when we rewrote it correctly. So here's p. P is negative 5, we said. And then be careful with this one, because there's a lot happening. But in your calculator, you would put negative 5 plus a negative 3. And guys, remember, that's just, you owed me $5 yesterday. You owe me $3 more today. You owe me a total of $8. Is that what we were supposed to get? Sure is. Awesome. Give me the points. Couple more, because now you should be getting it. Starting to catch on. Here's that equal sign. Once again, here's our q. We isolate the variable, so that is a q. And then we've got this ugliness happening. So when we have two negatives next to each other, a negative and a negative is a positive. So I know that your parents probably tell you 2 wrongs don't make a right, but in math, 2 negatives do make a positive. So rewrite it. So all I did was just rewrite it with a plus instead of those 2 negatives. There's your q. Let's isolate it. The opposite of adding 6 is subtracting 6. Those go away. And then sometimes people get weirded out, y'all, because y'all are like, but those cancel too. Yeah, they do cancel. So if they cancel, what is that? 0. So q equals 0. All right, so q supposedly is 0 minus. So I could straight up put that in my calculator. 0 minus a negative 6, or we know that's a plus, but that gives us 6. Which is what I got up there. Check. 2 more. This one. You knew that we were going to throw some decimals at you eventually. Before you have a panic attack, just relax. It's not the end of the world because you have your calculator. So here's your variable, which is an h. This time I'm subtracting 2.4. The opposite of subtracting 2.4 is adding 2.4. And notice, guys, when I'm doing this, I have everything nice and lined up. I'm not just throwing the plus 2.4 randomly over here. I have them nice and neat so when I cancel, I don't miss stuff. Those go away. I drop down my h, and you better believe in your calculator, you're putting negative 7.6 plus 2.4, which is negative 5.2. That's my solution. Let's step it out. I wrote large and in charge for that one. So h minus 2.4. H is supposedly negative 5.2. Put that all in my calculator, negative 5.2 minus 2.4, and I get negative 7.6. Great. Last one. Fractions. The lucky thing about this is you can actually do it 2 ways. With the great thing about these fractions are that they're terminating decimals, which means like negative 1/2 is just negative 0.5. If you don't believe me, put it in your calculator. Versus if we had negative 1/3, we'd have problems. But if they're terminating decimals, let's just go ahead, or excuse me, yeah, if they're terminating decimals, go ahead and just start off by making them decimals. That way you're not trying to add, subtract, multiply, and all these fractions. So let's go ahead. There's a couple things we got to fix here. Here's our variable. So the first thing we need to fix is this double sign action going on. Gross. So a positive and a negative is a negative. Drop down your 1/2, drop down your negative 1/4. All right, so that's looking better. And yes, at this point, we could go ahead and just keep our fractions, but let's go ahead and make them decimals because we can. So 1/2 is 0.5, and then negative 1/4 is negative 0.25, 1/4. Now, we just add 0.5 over. Well, here, find your variable, which is OT, and then we add 0.5 over, giving us t equals a positive 1/4, or 0.25. I think that's right? So that's my solution. And we think that it's supposedly, let's do the fraction, y'all, 1/4. So we think it's 1/4. And when I think of fractions, I really think of baking. I love doing. But so you would put 1/4 plus a negative 1/2 in your calculator, or once again, you could have made 1/4 0.25 and this negative 1/2 negative 0.5, whatever. But in your calculator, you're going to get 0.25, negative 0.25. Well, does that match that? I don't know. What is negative 1/4? Put that in your calculator. Negative 1 divided by 4, that is negative 0.25. So, yep, give me the points. Got it.